You're an Atlanta Falcons guy, so we are going to start with them. We want you to go ahead and pop off for us. Give us your must player for the Atlanta Falcons.
All right. I don't think it's really close in this division, potentially for all of football, for where I'm seeing him falling to. It's Kyle Pitts, ADP, tight end number 5, overall 67. I get it. It scares you. It scares me a little bit too after last year. I was riding the Pitts train going into the season. I did not completely think about what it meant that Marcus Mariota was going to be his quarterback. That's my bad. He got injured. That's the second thing. This dude is a generational talent. Like, it's rare that every scout says this guy has it. They've said that, and he proved it his first year. I mean, if you look at it, he was the first rookie in decades to go over 1,000 yards receiving. He scored 8.8 points or more in standard leagues in 10 games his rookie season, had a 90% route percentage, and ran the 5th most routes of all time by a tight end as a rookie with a washed-up Matt Ryan. So we were all very excited going into last year, rightfully so. And then Marcus freaking Mariota happened. If you watch Falcons games, you understand how bad he was. If you didn't, you probably saw the fantasy points he was scoring, the fact that we were actually had a decent record. Our offense was good, and they're going, it wasn't Marcus. It was Marcus Mariota. 24% of his passes last year were considered bad passes, basically uncatchable by our team. The biggest thing you need to know is in the games that Mariota started, Falcons averaged 23 pass attempts per. When they went to a rookie that they drafted in the 3rd round, they started throwing it 29 times per. So just having a rookie quarterback who had no previous action, they're like, yeah, we're going to throw it more because we trust this guy more than Marcus Mariota. Having said all that, last year, it wasn't as bad as you think. He still saw 88.7% for his route percentage. That would have been top 24 in the league, receivers and tight ends. He was 1st in target rate for tight ends, 2nd in target share. This is what's, to me, is just crazy. He was 1st in deep targets, 5th in air yards, 1st in unrealized air yards. He played 10 and a half games. So the issue was getting him the ball. It was not actually Kyle Pitts is not the guy we think he is. And I think the fact that now you got Bijan Robinson, who is going to be a difference maker. Obviously, you got Tyler Algier. They're talking about moving Cordell Patterson all over the place. We have Drake London emerge. I don't think defense is going to be able to zone in on them like they did last year. And most importantly, we have a quarterback who can throw it to them. Finally, and I know this a lot, but it's my Falcons. I love them. We can kind of tell what the difference is between Ridder and Mariota just by looking at London, because London last year, there was a huge difference in his numbers with Mariota and without. Now, Pitts obviously did not play with him, but his numbers with Mariota were very similar to London's. London's were 5.7 targets per, 3.4 receptions, 36.5 yards per. Pitts during that same time, 5.3 targets, just over 2.5 receptions, 32 yards. So we kind of see there, it was the same with Mariota. The 5 games that Ridder played with London, just unbelievable. 9.6 targets per, 6.2 receptions, 85.6 receptions. 4 of his top 5 receiving games, 5 of his 6 highest target games. I think on the low end, you're going to see Kyle Pitts catch 60, 70 balls, have 800 yards receiving, 5, 6 touchdowns. Again, that's if he stays healthy, obviously. But if he ends up taking that jump, which he is that kind of player, I think he could end up having a monster year. I actually still like him above every tight end, not named TJ Hawkinson and Travis Kelce. I expect a monster year for Kyle Pitts this year. Take him because you can get him in like the 4th round. I think he might be a huge bargain around that time.
Man, what an argument for Kyle Pitts. Just all the advanced stats and everything. Opening my eyes to things where last year I didn't watch much Atlanta Falcons football outside of playing the Saints.
Lucky you.
And you're absolutely right, man. And the fact that Kyle Pitts, we see him, we see the way he works. We know this guy has that it factor. But you brought up some interesting things that I want to go ahead and ask Drew about. This Desmond Ridder profile. Where are you at on Desmond Ridder this year, Drew? And are you a believer? Like Keith seems to think that he can be that guy that really takes Atlanta to the next level.
I mean, I like Desmond Ridder. He was it wasn't that impressive of a quarterback class, but he was my favorite quarterback in that rookie class. That had Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, and those other guys. I thought that he should have gotten a shot much earlier than he did last year. I mean, it was pretty clear that Marcus Mariota wasn't the guy. They weren't that they weren't going to go win a Super Bowl with him. So I wasn't sure what the point of sticking with the veteran for so long was. I didn't really get that in the first place. I wanted to see more of him last year. So, I mean, from a fantasy standpoint, I've got him down at quarterback 28. So he's not anybody that I'm like personally targeting to put in my fantasy lineup, but I do think he will make all of the options around him much more viable than they were last year. So, I mean, I agree with Keith. I was all in them pits last year. I'm right back in this year. I've got him as my tight end 3. He's somebody I'm targeting in the 4th, 5th round every time he's there. So I do think that I don't know if he's the franchise guy, if he's going to be that guy or not, but I do think that he will make all of the options around him much more viable this year than they were last year.
Yeah, man, I could completely agree with that. You know, as we've previously talked about, we've talked with a lot of people who understand the tight end position. And one of these things we've always spoken about is having a guy who has a realistic opportunity at that first or second place in the passing game in terms of targets. And Kyle Pitts absolutely feels like one of those guys who has a very real opportunity at being one of those guys. And Keith said it's 60, 70 balls, 800 yards, 6 or so touchdowns. He does that. That puts him right where he needs to be. You know, maybe not, like we said, this generational guy who broke 1,000 yards in year 1, but certainly a very startable and certainly a very attractive tight end for the long term. So moving into my bust for the Atlanta Falcons, Keith, we is well documented as not being a Bijan Robinson guy. I'm going to go against him right here and say that my bust is for the Atlanta Falcons this year. I have as Tyler Algier because the Bijan thing is real. It's coming. It may be coming sooner than we think. And as of right now in rankings, Tyler Algier currently around running back 44 in half PPR with projections for about 147 carries, 684 yards, 3 touchdowns. The scary part is only 12 catches for about 90 yards. And this is one of those things where with tight ends, running backs, we love having guys that are going to catch that football, and we're not sure Tyler Algier is going to be that guy. But what we're going to say is this, and I sincerely believe this, is that if Bijan Robinson is healthy and nothing catastrophic happens, based off of the schedule that they have, he may be coming even sooner than we anticipated, because we all sort of thought starting off that it was going to be Tyler Algier until Bijan is ready. Well, looking at the first 5 weeks of the schedule for the Atlanta Falcons, we have the Carolina Panthers, Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions, Jacksonville Jaguars, and Houston Texans in the first 5 weeks. Guys, I don't know if you are all about ramping up your rookie running back, but I'm going to say this. If you're going to do it, that first 5 weeks with Atlanta having the schedule that they have against running backs is I think there's a pretty solid chance that you're going to see Bijan break out somewhere in those first 5 weeks. And Algier being in that 11th round ADP around 132, I'm not going to say that you're losing much in terms of where you're drafting him. But like we said, if Bijan does hit in those first 5 weeks, that ramp up that we were talking about where Tyler Algier is going to have early season value may be dialed back a lot earlier than we anticipate. So my thing with Tyler Algier is this. I do think he's a good player. I saw him break 1,000 yards last year. I saw him run well between the tackles. But with Bijan in his backfield and Cordero Patterson in his backfield, I'm not sure Tyler Algier is the guy that has the best skill set at any of the things that running backs need to do in this backfield. But I'm curious to have your thoughts on Tyler Algier and his place in this backfield, Keith.
Man, it's sort of the same thing I'm telling people with Bijan. I would grab up any Falcons running back you can if it's not too early. If you're getting them at a good value for what their ADP is, because we don't know what's going to happen. Looking back at last year, Patterson, Algier inside the 5 scored 8 of 16 times on their carries. So again, I just don't know if they're going to immediately just give the keys to Bijan when they get inside the 5, when you got 2 guys that 50% of the time when they carried inside 5 last year, they scored touchdowns. I think you're right about Cordell being in like PPR and half PPR. I think he's being really undervalued. We've been, heard rumors they're going to line him up at tight end some. They're going to have 2-3 backs out at a time. There's a lot of unknowns in this Falcons offense. All those guys are very talented, and all of them have proven at some level, they can play, because Patterson obviously was a Pro Bowler, his first year at running back. Algier last year went for 1,000 yards basically in 7 games. And then Bijan, I mean, there's no doubt in the talent. I think Bijan, I believe, now again, this is just speculation, I think they're going to run him maybe 10, 15 times a game tops, where I think you're going to see him have monster games. It's like the McCaffrey type deal where he is just catching passes left and right. And I think they're going to use him a lot as a receiver. I had a buddy go to Falcons camp earlier this year. He said it was amazing how much time, they were letting him catch passes coming out of the backfield. But I think that Arthur Smith has proved one thing. He likes to run the ball. Since he's been in Atlanta, I think he kind of learned from Derrick Henry, maybe wearing him down a little bit. They have spread the rock out. I mean, even, that first year, I didn't understand why Patterson wasn't getting the ball more, right? When he was a Pro Bowler, I just think he knows if you give too many carries to any back, you're going to kind of wear them down. It's more like they get banged up. And I really think this is going to be a 3-headed monster that, unless you're drafting them way above their ADP, I don't think it's going to necessarily be a bad pick. I'm more confident in the Falcons running game than I am in passing, even with all those things I just said about Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, if you had to put a gun to your head right now and predict that snap share between those 3 backs, what are we looking at?
I mean, obviously, I think that you're going to see Bijan get a majority. So I would say if you're splitting a pie, let's say 50% to Bijan, maybe 25 Patterson, 25 Algier. I don't understand how you can not give Algier significant snaps with the way he ran down the stretch when we had, I got to remind people, a rookie quarterback, Drake London, and then other receivers that are my size out there. Literally guys that were like 5'8", 5'9", and he's running for 100 yards, 100 yards, 100 yards, and very effectively. I really think they're just going to kind of keep the hot hand, do that kind of deal. They did it a lot last year, actually, when Patterson first went out with Caleb Huntley, which I know people were like, what the hell is going on? Where Algier had a great first couple of series. Then Caleb Huntley came in and started thrashing. I think it was like the Bears or the Chargers during the middle of the season. I think you're going to see a lot of that this year. The key is going to be, can they throw the ball? I think Ritter can, but obviously that's the scary point. But I think the rush attack is going to be as strong. They got 2,800 yards last year, and now they have, added Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, no big deal. 2,800 yards, and then you add the most talented running back in a long time, definitely since Saquon Barkley in the NFL draft. So we have a must with Kyle Pitts, a bust in Tyler Algier. Drew Scott, go ahead and give us a maybe for the Atlanta Falcons.
Before I do that, I have to at least get it on record. I do agree with Keith in saying that you have to basically, just because it is an unknown, you have to go with what you believe what this offense is going to be, because none of us can predict the future. If you think it's going to be a 50% Bijan, 20% somebody else, 20% somebody else, then Bijan's being overdrafted right now. But I've got Bijan as my running back 3, my 7th player overall. I'm in the camp that I think that Tyler Algier's success had just as much to do with his talent as it did how good of a running scheme Arthur Smith is able to develop. And so I think if you put a day 3 running back like Tyler Algier back there and he has that kind of success, I just think that it's going to get even better once you put the word gets thrown out a lot, but I believe he is a generational running back in Bijan Robinson. Whenever and something that, Keith, I know you weren't very happy about it. You had a kind of a viral video after the NFL draft whenever they took a running back that high, but I would just be shocked if they took a running back as high as they did and then didn't just give him the keys. I think that he will be one of the few workhorse running backs in the league next year. If I had to guess, I would think it would be like a 65% snap share going toward Bijan to start the year. And then even going, maybe even up to 70% as the year goes on. I'm in on Bijan being a workhorse next year. So I have no problem where he's going. But if you don't, if you're out there drafting and you don't think that that's going to be the outcome, don't take him where he's going right now, because he's going to be overdrafted if you end up being right. So Keith's right, though. You have to just figure out what you believe the offense is going to be, because there's no way for us to know. So for me, the maybe is Drake London, and it shouldn't be much of a secret of how much I love Drake London at this point. I've already done the Dynasty target profile on him this offseason. I've got him as my wide receiver 21 for redraft right now this season compared to his wide receiver 26 ADP. He's a maybe for me only because of the concerns around the offense, but apparently I'm not as worried about that as the rest of the fantasy community is based on my ranking versus his ADP. Keith already alluded to this, but Mariota, he was only averaging 23 pass attempts a game last year, but in just the 4 starts Ritter got at the end of the year, that number jumped up to 29 pass attempts a game. And while that might not be a humongous difference, it was enough for them to go from being the 31st team in pass attempts to being around like 23rd, 24th in pass attempts per game. So it was a decent increase, and something to where I would think we would at least see similar numbers at now that Ritter's had an entire offseason to prepare. And so whenever it comes to Drake London, I'm really just betting on his talent. Last year, London and fellow rookie Chris Olave, who I'll be talking about a little bit later, joined 4 other receivers that have put up a 25% target share in their rookie year, which were Justin Jefferson, OBJ, Mike Evans, and Kelvin Benjamin. So let's just ignore that last name, but pretty good company overall, though. And he's also one of only 7 receivers over the last 10 years to average 2+ yards per route run in the past 10 years. And that number went up to over 3 yards per route run in the games that Desmond Ridder was the quarterback. So, the offense might be a mystery, but I'm trusting the talent with Drake London, and I'm gladly taking him at ADP right now this year.
All right, so let's just go ahead and ask the question. Keith, you got to take one of these pass catchers, Kyle Pitts or Drake London?
It depends on where I'm having to draft them. I like both of them with their current ADP. I don't know who else are the Falcons going to throw it to. I mean, let's be honest. If you're not talking about their running backs, there's nobody. And because of that, and the fact that we saw how peppered London was with targets in the game with Ridder, I really think that that's what the goal is going to be this year. Is they're going to pound the rock and then play action to Drake and Pitts, and it's going to be really effective because those guys are huge weapons. I mean, if you're a young quarterback, what else would you want than 2 guys that are both 6'5"? If you're asking me, gun to my head, who has a better year, I'd probably say the safer pick. If you're just talking about like a PPR where receptions, everything count, it's London. But again, I would gladly take either one of them where their current ADP is right now all day long, because I think Falcons offense is going to be sneaky good. And if you look at our schedule, it is so weak. I think that the Falcons are going to get up in games. That's going to be good for the offense. They can run first, throw second. That's going to help Ridder. I really do. Of course, I'm just setting myself up for disappointment, but I think the Falcons are going to win at least 8-9 games.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's part of why I like Bijan so much is what Keith was saying, like who else is going to catch the ball. I've got Bijan as the 3rd leading receiver on this team right now behind
I love him in half
London
PPR and PPR leagues. I'm all over Robinson.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons I do like this offense, is because I do think it's going to be really condensed in the fact of we know who the fantasy relevant guys are going to be. Like Mac Hollins might have a week here or there or whatever, but like I think that the fantasy options are pretty clear cut on this team. So I like that.
I do too.
Consolidated shares in terms of fantasy guys, always a good thing to have. So to recap the Atlanta Falcons, we have a must in Kyle Pitts, a bust in Tyler Algier, and a maybe in Drake London.